welcome to Designing Healthcare That Cares, the show where we explore how to build healthcare systems where people and performance thrive. I'm your host, Dr. Laura Suttin, a physician, coach, and healthcare leader who believes that human flourishing and organizational excellence go hand in hand. Each week, I talk with leaders, change makers, and innovators about how to shift culture, lead with purpose, and tackle the root causes of burnout. Because when healthcare works for the people in it, everyone wins. Welcome to this episode of the Designing Healthcare That Cares podcast. I'm really excited to have our guest. I'll introduce her in just a minute, Rachel DeAlto. Rachel and I got to know each other through a speaking community called Impact 11, and really excited to talk to her. So let me tell you a little bit about Rachel. So Rachel DeAlto, CSP, is a communication and leadership expert, a keynote speaker specializing in human connection and relatability. Her latest book that just came out is The Relatable Leader, Create a Culture of Connection. And then her other book is called Relatable, How to Connect with Anyone, Anywhere, Even if it Scares You. I love that. Rachel holds a law degree and a master's in psychology and has earned the Certified Speaking Professional, the CSP designation, through the National Speakers Association, an honor held by fewer than 2% of speakers worldwide. She shares psychology-backed insights on communication, leadership, and connection across her influential social media channels. A trusted expert in the media, Rachel has appeared on Lifetime's Married at First Sight, TLC's Kate Plus Date, and more than 200 national outlets. Her TEDx talk, Being Authentic in a Filtered World, is featured on TED.com and explores the power of authentic communication in a digital age. With years of experience helping people build trust, improve communication, and strengthen relationships, whether in media, business, or leadership, Rachel empowers audiences to develop relatable leadership, drive team connection, and build high-performing, human-centered cultures. Love all of that. Welcome to the show, Rachel. So good to talk to you.
Thanks for having me, Laura. Great to be here.
So I want to talk a little bit about you and how you came upon this as having a law background, psychology background. How did this evolve for you?
Oh, completely unintentionally. I think I've just always opened the doors and then walked through them blindly half the time. But I was actually a practicing lawyer, had an opportunity, had an idea for a startup pop into our heads. And my partner and I started this company around the dating space. This is like 15 years ago, before apps even existed. And so launched this company, and it failed miserably because technology basically overcame the concept pretty quickly, because we're pre-apps. We have this idea. It's an online, offline idea of dating. And then apps existed. I think it was about 3 months later, all of the apps were launching. And so became obsolete overnight. But we had already started this movement into that space. I started doing a ton of TV and media appearances around the company. And then I realized this entire industry existed outside of law and startup that I never even imagined before. And I was like, well, this is fun. And I was like, wait, personal development, professional development, what? And so kind of followed it down. It really went from startup founder to media personality to then doing TV for about 10 years, and then realized I wanted to just go a little deeper, and hence the books and really focusing on relatability and human connection. So yeah, every time a door opened, I was like, all right, let's go.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, you took a lot of risks, one of them leaving the legal profession. I mean, that can be scary.
Yeah, and I'm not really a risk person. I mean, most people who would meet me, which is ironic given the fact that I haven't had a stable job in 15 years, any sort of security or W-2, but I'm pretty risk adverse. So I'm not sure why I did that. I think I just felt so compelled. It felt so right, and kind of just followed that intuition. And thankfully it worked.
Well, like you said, you found what worked for you and you moved towards it. You just kind of went through the open doors, and here you are, and you're successful and inspiring a lot of folks. So yeah, like you said, it worked.
Yeah, which I'm grateful for. But yeah, it's one of those things. If you look at it in retrospect, I understand why my parents were wondering what was wrong with me and if I had lost my mind.
As they often do. As a physician who left a very stable full-time job. Yeah.
You understand
And
this?
that, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're like, wait a second, didn't you go to school for a really long time?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, I'm still paying those off. I will
Yeah.
have probably law school loans until I die.
Yeah. Like, isn't this what you wanted to be when you were a little girl? Like, yeah. And it's different now. Yeah.
Changed my mind.
Yeah. Starting out looking at dating apps, is that where the connection and relatability concepts came from? Or how did you pull those threads out?
Yeah, so I was in the dating and relationship space for some time. That's where a lot of my TV credentials came from. So, when I was doing segments back in the day and then ended up becoming an expert on Married at First Sight for a couple seasons. And then it was when I left Married at First Sight when people started sending me messages and they said, I talk about this often where they're sending me messages on every platform in every way possible. And I literally got almost 1,500 messages from viewers saying, "Why did you leave? You were so relatable." And so it kind of just sparked something in me as I kept reading the same word. And so I wanted to understand what that meant and also why they felt drawn to me because of it. And so that's where really relatability came to play was I saw that it was something being identified and I really wanted to understand it from a more scientific perspective. And so, I don't believe in sample sizes of one. And so I went and tried to understand what does that mean and really define it in a way that I could then teach other people how to become more relatable, whether we're talking leadership or just human connection.
Yeah. And one thing that you said when I watched some of your videos is you said relatability is a skill, and you just
Yeah.
alluded to it there. Is it something that can be taught?
Yes.
And I'm wondering if you hear that a lot. People say, well, I'm an introvert or I'm an extrovert, putting themselves in boxes. And so, how do you respond when people
Yeah.
maybe challenge that a little bit?
Yeah. And well, introversion, extroversion is definitely a trait of people, but this is something that can be adapted towards wherever you fall on that scale. And that's where I challenge them back. You could be the most introverted person alive, but what I teach in terms of relatability, you can apply it. And especially as a leader, obviously, there's so many introverted leaders out there. And it's really following more of a framework, which kind of gives a more security to those interactions. But anybody can do it. It's not charisma. I think that's what gets mistaken for whether it's extroversion or charisma or likability. Being relatable to someone is relational. It's how you show up, and we can all show up intentionally in a different way than we naturally do, but without kind of abandoning who you are at your core. Introverts, I'm not saying, you have to go network every day for the rest of your life to become relatable because they'll stop listening to me, and I would too.
Yeah.
But you can very intentionally show up relatably. Relatably? I don't think I've ever used that word before.
Well, there you go.
That's what you get. I was telling you before, I was like, it's like Rachel after dark at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which is so strange for me. I'm gonna go hit up the early bird special after this. I'm making up words.
Yeah. You hit the jackpot.
But
Yeah.
yeah, anyone can do it. It's really just the intention behind it and thinking through how we show up and doing it a little bit differently.
Yeah. I love that. And, I work a lot with healthcare professionals and healthcare teams and healthcare leaders who are in this space of healthcare is very challenging right now for no matter where, if you're a healthcare professional or a patient or where you are in that spectrum, nobody's happy essentially. And our healthcare leaders are really challenged with, like a lot of leaders are, how do we engage our employees? Something like healthcare or in nonprofit or education, how do we bring them back to what's the mission of what we're doing? How do we treat them with the respect and that they need and give them the resources they need to be effective? And I'm sure you hear this a lot too. Of leaders say, well, I don't have time to do the touchy feely stuff. It takes too much time. It takes too much money. We don't have any money in the budget. And so I want to hear your take on that and how you approach that with people that are leading teams and leading other people.
Oh my gosh, there's so much meat there. Like, where do we start? First of all, I completely understand. I think healthcare professionals are possibly the most overworked, undercompensated people in the job market, period. And it's sad because obviously we can't live without them. Quite literally, we can't live without them. And yet they're not being compensated in terms of time or money in the way that they should be. That soapbox aside, what I do say for leadership in any situation, but especially in healthcare, is I understand you don't have the time, and I get that. And trying to add more hours into a day is impossible. But additionally, we don't have the time to not do these because what happens is it doesn't have to be this enormous undertaking of, okay, I'm going to pick up this book and I'm going to do everything in it for the next month, but then I can't do anything else. It's taking the little moments, it's taking a minute with somebody or 5 minutes with someone instead of having these meetings or sit downs and things like that. They can happen in those small moments. And the time that you take, even if you take those small moments, is going to pay off in the time that you save by not having to train somebody else. or bring a new professional in,
Right.
because I guarantee you, if you added up all the hours that you had to spend with that new hire, you could have just taken the time with the existing team.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the money thing that you mentioned in terms of budgets, research shows time and time again, monetary incentive is the lowest in the rankings.
Yes.
It's always people are looking for recognition. They're looking for, as you mentioned, the word respect. They're looking for things that don't cost anything except for your time. But we can do that in small moments. It doesn't have to be these big. I think sometimes people think, oh my gosh, if I sit down with someone, it has to be an hour. Nobody wants to sit down with you for an hour. If you're a leader and you can talk to somebody for 30 seconds and tell them they're doing an amazing job, that satisfies them for the next month.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. More than bonuses or raises. And yeah, I hear that a lot too about, well, we can't give them more money. And in my experience, I worked a lot with physicians on creating incentive compensation programs in my past role. A lot of times when we would throw money at a situation, it would backfire. When
Yeah.
we would start paying the physicians or bonusing them to do something, then it would backfire. And then we'd start to get the opposite behavior, which was really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From a psychological perspective, it's fascinating because you would think, obviously, we all need money. I think we all seek out to be compensated, but compensation has to fill your soul just as much as it fills your bank account.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we think about when people look back on their life, what are the things that they either most regret or wish they spent more time with, or what are those watershed moments in people's lives? And it's time with loved ones, it's connection with nature, connection with ourselves. I mean, so it's not about like the nice things and then the things that money can buy. It's the time that we spend with each other. So,
Yeah. Far more valuable.
yeah. Yeah. And I see this in frontline healthcare professionals too, feeling really disconnected. And you talk about empathy a lot. And again, our frontline professionals are burning out. And so we know that empathy is so important, not just for the clinician, but for the patients as well. And all the studies that show that clinicians that are more empathetic and compassionate have better healthcare outcomes, or their patients are not only happier, but healthier. The clinicians are happier and healthier. And so, again, I hear that, well, I don't have enough time to spend with my patients any longer. I was
Yeah.
actually coaching a nurse practitioner about this recently. And so we started talking about, well, how can you make the best of the time that you have? You might really only have 5 minutes with that patient. What can you do to make the most impact with that patient or make them feel connected to you?
It's funny. One of my favorite studies that I just read recently was sit down.
Yes.
They found that if a healthcare practitioner sat down, the patient found that they believed they cared more, were more compassionate, and they believed they spent more time with them, even when they didn't.
Yes.
So, but think about that, because to me, it kind of goes back to everything we were just talking about. We're not adding on. This isn't additional time. It's our actions in that moment too. And in those seconds, you could literally make such a difference just by sitting down, because what does that indicate? It indicates to me as a patient, and I think we should do this. I use this oftentimes when I'm talking to leaders in all industries. I was like, sit down. If you're having a 4-minute conversation with someone, take a seat with them versus standing over them. Because when you're standing, you're showing, I'm looking to leave. I'm
Yeah.
ready to go. I'm halfway out the door. Versus sitting down is presence. Sitting down is connection. Sitting down says, I'm here for you. I'm not here for anybody else.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And that was so powerful. That was an insight that my client had. The other thing that came up for her is she realized that a lot of clinicians struggle with getting their administrative work done on time, getting their charting done. If she was able to finish up what she needed to do with the prior patient before she went in to see the next patient, then that last patient visit wasn't working in her brain, and she wasn't so focused on, oh, I forgot to write that down. And she was able to be more present with that patient. And so I'm curious your thoughts in the digital space as you talk about in our what we call our hyper connected world, but we're so incredibly distracted by things that are going on around us. And so, how can we realize that and then shut it out to an extent, or how do we manage through all of that?
Yeah. Well, first, I have so much empathy for people trying to do that because it's impossible. I mean, from that perspective. But it's figuring out, is there a process that works better? Like you said, if you walk out of a room and you can do your notes right away so that it's not stuck on your head. And it doesn't mean that you're still not going to think of that patient 3 patients down and be like, oh my gosh, I need to write this down. But for the most part, whatever you can offload, and also just understanding the way that our brains work. We can only hold so much at one time. And so it's understandable. And in fact, it's expected that we would be distracted. So, what is within the realm of your control? And I think that's the best way for leaders or any human to look at their life is I could spend a lot of time getting upset about the things I can control, but is there a process I can control? Is there a methodology that I can control? Can I put this away? I'm such a study nerd and data nerd, but there was a study that just came out recently where it said we are 30%, I think it was less effective. I'm not sure exactly what the quantified data was, but we are 30% less effective if a phone is in our presence. Like, even if we can see it, we're distracted.
Yes.
So even its presence alone. So it's like, well, how can I take that away?
Yeah.
Take away the things that you can control. And I'm going to throw mine on the floor. It's done. It's gone. I can't see it
I'm going to throw
anymore.
mine on the couch over there.
And all of a sudden we're just throwing phones, breaking phones. But it's
Yeah.
like, it's those little things. And I think it's become the theme of our conversation. They're all small little tweaks that can make huge impacts.
Yeah. Are you seeing in the younger generation, the folks that grew up with phones, are you starting to see them start to realize like, hey, maybe this isn't the best thing for me all the time? I mean, my kids and their friends, if they're getting together, they're all on their phones. And I'm like, are they texting each other?
Yes.
Like,
Yes, they are. It's bizarre. Yeah, I don't see any self-awareness from my teenagers. I think what's going to happen is they're going to have to become full-fledged adults. Their brains are going to have to fully form. And then they're going to be like, that was a really bad idea.
yeah.
And it's unfortunate because I don't see that from any sort of, reflective standpoint of anyone in that generation. I have a 15-year-old, 19, 21, 25. Like, none of them understand that it's terrible. They're still on it. So,
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I feel a physical, oh, I really want to check social media or check my email. Like that dopamine is 100% there.
yeah,
Yeah.
I do it too. I use TikTok as my entertainment. And yet, what I realized, and I was talking to my husband about this. So he's on no social media. He'll watch YouTube. He discovered YouTube like 3 years ago. And I was like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to you, because now he wants to talk about some random video that he found at 2 o'clock in the morning. But I digress. He's not on social media and he reads every day, always has a book running in his Kindle. And I always read books too, but I'll step away from them and I'll go on TikTok and I'll swipe for hours and hours versus reading a book that would actually make me distracted in a good way.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're going to see some really long-term results from what we're choosing to do. And we're just not there yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to be bad.
Crazy social experiment that we're running with no control group, essentially.
Yes. No, there is one. I think they're in like Montana in a mountain somewhere. There's
Right.
some
Right.
Wi-Fi.
Yes, exactly.
And honestly, they're going to be the only adjusted ones.
I was reading this article yesterday about this conversation about phones in schools. So where I live, several of the school districts, the big school districts, said no phones in schools. I think the students have to put them in a basket at the beginning of class or something. And the teachers are like, hallelujah. Yeah, it's this really interesting debate. And the parents are saying, what if I need to get a hold of my kid? And part of me is like, okay, yes. At the same time, I grew up in the 80s and
Yeah, you could call
I
the school.
went everywhere. No, people didn't know where I was, and
Yeah.
yeah. But is that impacting their ability to relate to one another and connect with one another?
100%. The anxiety that has increased because of our social media usage, especially, and that was actually something I studied when I was getting my master's, is I wanted to understand the effects of social media on children and teenagers. And it was interesting. The research showed that it wasn't necessarily the amount of time that people spent online or that the kids spent on social media. It was their attachment to social media. It was the emotional attachment. Do they get upset when people don't like their stuff? Do they get upset when people leave them unread? Is there an emotional attachment? And that's actually what led to the biggest, areas of depression and anxiety. And to me, that's our biggest challenge right now, is because it is anxiety producing enough to try to socialize. The most extroverted people still get anxious over meeting somebody new. I mean, I've done the research. I have about 5,000 responses of a survey that I asked people, do you feel nervous when you meet somebody new? And 93% of people, from students to CEOs, said yes. And so you take that this natural anxiety that exists. And then you compound that with the fact that now we're comparing ourselves to everybody else all the time, or, knowing when we're left out and all of these things that make us even more anxious. There's no way that it's not going to continue to get in the way.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And so if I'm listening to this, I'm a leader within healthcare or any industry really, and I manage people and I want to improve how I relate and how I connect with others. What are some really concrete things that I can do?
Oh, it's understanding what they're looking for. That's actually the whole reason why I wrote Relatable Leader. I had no desire to write that book, but I kept thinking we're missing the mark. And we're talking about leadership and these kind of big ideas of vulnerability and authenticity and, emotional intelligence, which is awesome. But none of that matters if we don't have the baseline. And so, I did a whole study and found that people are still looking for respect. They're looking to trust their leadership and they're looking for clear communication. Those are the top three things above all age groups. And so if I'm a leader today, I'm understanding that you can listen to the podcasts and read all of those books and have those kind of big ideas of how you want to show up. But at the end of the day, it is baseline. If you show people that they have value, if you respect them, if you consistently show up in a way that allows them to feel trust in you, which that doesn't take time. And that's what I would say is none of these things take more time. You could respect someone in moments as a healthcare clinician. Every interaction that you naturally are having anyway is a moment to show respect. Every interaction is a way to build trust. Are you communicating effectively? Are you consistent in your words and actions? Like, are you showing that you care about people? It doesn't require an additional meeting, doesn't require that additional sit down. And then, the last one is that clear communication, which I always say, like, communication is great, but like comprehension is really what we're looking for here.
Right.
And so how are we making sure that even the small things that we're saying actually get translated into their brains in a way that they can understand? So those are the top three things. But all of those things happen in those small moments. I'm not looking to add to your daily agendas.
Yeah. So if I'm a leader and I don't know how I'm performing on those, I don't know how the people around me would rate my trust and level of respect and communication. All I can see
Yeah.
is, well, I sent the email. I tell them what I think they need to know. How do I start to learn what the people around me are thinking?
This requires time.
Yeah.
This one will. I actually put a survey in the back of the book, a kind of a sample engagement side survey so that you could ask those questions to people. But if you don't want to deploy a survey, which love surveys, and I think asking people what they're thinking anonymously allows you to get some really good 360 feedback. But maybe there's someone on your team that you trust and that would be honest with you and give them the floor. Everybody has someone on their team that you're like, oh, they've got opinions, but don't ask the questions unless you plan on doing the work. And that's what I would really, really caution is I've seen it so many times where an organization either does send out a survey or hires consultants or they ask those questions. They have a focus group or they just sit down with people and then nothing changes. And you're like, well, I'm never doing this again because I just wasted my time.
Yeah. And that destroys trust quickly. I've seen that too.
Super fast.
Yeah. Yeah. So there is an initial investment of let's diagnose what's the landscape? How am I doing with these things? How do the people around me feel that I'm trusting them, respecting them, and communicating with them? And it sounds like a survey like that, like what that's in your book, can really give actionable feedback on, okay, I'm scoring my trust here is not so great. What can I do to build that trust among the people that I work with?
Yeah, because if you're killing it in an area, then, you can move to whatever other elements could use some work. And so, yeah, I think that the heaviest lift is finding out where you stand. And it, like you said, it's what's the diagnosis and what's the treatment. When you're going to have to treat, you have to diagnose.
Yeah.
So unless you have a team that is killing it in every area, you have no engagement issues, everybody's happy, then, you should probably stop listening to this podcast right now.
No, don't stop listening.
No, like and comment first and then
exactly. Follow and subscribe first, then stop. Yeah. Yeah, but I'm not leading a team right now, mostly a solopreneur, but I definitely think back to ways I could have done things better. And of course, I think of ways now as a consultant, as a speaker or coach, how do I relate to my clients, my universe, my family, and how do I make sure that I'm not stuck in my solopreneur bubble and working from home, but connecting with other people like on the podcast and connecting with my clients and connecting with other like-minded humans. So yeah, and staying off my phone as much as I can.
Well, we broke them. They're gone.
Exactly. I need to get a new one. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for being on. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners?
They don't have time.
Well, you'll have to come back.
Yes, absolutely. No, I think that's it. Honestly, it's just understand like you're doing the best you can.
Yeah.
Give yourself a break. If
Yeah.
you're listening to this and if you're thinking about being better and constantly evolving and doing better, then you're doing the best you can. And so don't beat yourself up. Take those small moments.
I love that. If you're here, you're killing it already. So
Yep. Yeah.
very cool. So wonderful to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Designing Healthcare That Cares. If today's conversation gave you a new idea or inspired you to see things differently, share this episode with a colleague and keep the conversation going. And if you're ready to take the next step in building a thriving healthcare culture, you can find resources and ways to connect with me at drlaurasuttin.com. This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not medical advice, and it should not replace care from a qualified healthcare provider. Always seek the guidance of your physician or other qualified professional for any medical questions or decisions.